Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Almost exactly 1 year ago, I reviewed a fantastic new entry to the power station product space from a company that had, at least up to that point, been best known as one of the top producers of things like USB power banks, chargers, and peripherals, things like that. And at that time, that power station was called the Powerhouse 767, but Anker has since introduced an entire lineup of power stations, and they've rebranded that product lineup under the Anker SOLIX label. So that Powerhouse 767 is now actually called the Anker SOLIX F2000. And in that video, I made a kind of a bold prediction that has since come to full fruition. And if this product is any indication, they are in this market to be a major player. And if they ever decide to get into the 8 to 10 kilowatt expandable home backup systems with split phase capability, yeah, I would be pretty concerned if I were Bluetti and EcoFlow, because these guys are bringing it. So yeah, in the past year, Anker has definitely become a serious player in the power station product space. And the Solix lineup does actually now include large capacity whole home power backup solutions like their new F3800. And those are capable of both 240 volt output and capacities up to 43.8 kilowatt hours. And they are continuing to add new product options on both ends of their power station product capacity spectrum. And today, we're going to take a look at their newest edition. This is the just announced Anker SOLIX C800 Plus. Now this thing can continually power up to 1200 watt loads, and we'll certainly get into the other specs in much more detail here shortly. But before we do that, let's take a jump back into time and see what it actually comes with in the box, and we'll discover along the way kind of a pretty cool and unique design feature that I was definitely not expecting to find. All right, so one user guide. That is a good looking unit. I like the color of that thing. It's different. All right, we have got, looks like a XT60 parallel cable to allow you to connect a couple of XT60 solar panels. We have got a XT60 to car charger. All right, and a standard, actually nice heavy gauge AC charge cable. It's kind of weird, when you look at cables, you don't often think of them as high quality or low quality cable. They're just cables, right? But you can definitely tell good quality cables when you get your hands on one. They're just the insulation just feels better. They feel heavier gauge. They're not cheap cables. So again, Anker just seems to be doing things right. So let's see what we got here. Looks like there is a cable pouch. Oh no, this is not a cable pouch. Check this out. I thought this whole time, I thought this was a cable pouch, but for flashlights. Oh, sorry, I'm having to figure this out in real time. That's sits right up there. So, one of my complaints about the power stations have those little flashlight on them. They don't have a lot of diffusing. It's like, well, how do you use that, functionally? Well, they've solved that problem. And, a lot of times you just get the diffused light that goes in the back. It kind of just provides general light. Well, this, they give you two of them so you can take one with you. Then you can put one up here, and it's got a soft light, and you can increase the brightness. And this becomes kind of a, an area light, a nice soft sort of candle type style area light, little LEDs. And I like the fact that you can just pull this off and use it as a flashlight. Yeah, just a thoughtful design. I think this is very cool. But this is a 1/4-20. You could put this on any kind of a tripod or, GoPro mount that's got a 1/4-20 on it. You can set that on anything, but they give you a spot for it right there. All right, so on the side, we have our DC charging. That's our XT60, and it says 11 volts to 60 volts at 10 amps max. So the key thing is to not exceed 60 volts on the DC input, and that's up to 300 watts. So it'll cap you at 300 watts total of solar input. We have got standard 10 amp, 12 volt car socket. We have got no less than 5 AC outlets. And I'll have to figure out if those are 110 or 120. Hopefully they're 120. And then we've got a couple of quick charge 18 watt type A USB ports, and then a couple of PD100 USB ports. Now this is something that Anker does very well, because that was their bread and butter business for many years. Power banks, USB accessory connectors and things like that. So they know USB very well. So I have no doubt that these are very high quality USB outputs. 768 watt hours is the capacity. Nothing on the back but a specs label. Yeah, so very high quality. This is a really high quality feeling ABS plastic. Yeah, so just generally impressed so far, and I haven't even done anything with it except the just really admiring the design. It's got interesting branding on the top, Anker SOLIX. It's got kind of a carbon fiber look to it. It's obviously not, but it's got that kind of a texture. Anker's just really doing a nice job in terms of not being a cookie cutter type engineering on these power stations. All right, let's go ahead and jump forward in time, run this thing through the paces, and find out if it lives up to its specs. See you in a couple seconds. All right, let's dive into the specs a little bit deeper. And as I mentioned previously, the C800 Plus has a pure sine wave AC inverter that is rated for a continuous 1200 watts of output. The rated battery capacity is 768 watt hours, and it does use lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry, so it should be able to provide a very long service life, well in excess of 10 years, even with daily use. Oh, and if you're curious what kinds of things that you can run with this particular power station and for how long, I do have a Google spreadsheet that you can download that will help you get a pretty good feel for that, and I'll put a link to that in the video description below if you want to go check that out. Now, this does have a nice compact footprint at only 14.5 inches wide. That's including these nice big grab handles here on the top, and it's 8 inches deep and just right at 10 inches tall, and it weighs in at a very manageable 24 pounds. And like all the other Anker SOLIX power stations, it has an industry-leading 5-year warranty. Now, there aren't very many power station options out there with a 5-year warranty, so that kind of just underscores Anker's confidence in the build quality of these power stations. All right, let's go run this C800 Plus through the usual paces and find out if it can actually live up to those specs and whether or not there are any quirks that you might want to be aware of before you go out and buy one. All right, let's run a DC discharge test on this Anker SOLIX C800. Go ahead and turn it on. I do have it fully charged up. Now, it doesn't have any accessory ports like the like a DC 5525 or a 5521. It just has the car socket for DC out if you don't count the USB ports. All right, so that's turned on as evidenced by that icon right there. All right, no problem at 9 amps. We're pulling 120 watts. All right, let's check back after the BMS shuts it down and find out how many watt hours we actually got out of this thing through the DC port. Okay, our DC discharge capacity test is done on the C800. It looks like we got a total of 643.3 watt hours. That is out of a rated 768 watt hours. So that gives us just shy of 84%. So pretty solid, right down the middle average number for usable capacity out of the DC ports. Okay, let's get this thing charged all the way back up and we'll check the usable capacity out of the AC inverter through the AC ports. All right, we have got this fully recharged. Let's go ahead and plug it into my watt meter here. Turn the AC inverter on and we'll put a load on it. This will be about it'll settle down into about a 200 watt continuous load. Let's see what kind of voltage we're pulling here. We're right at 120 volts, so that's excellent. And let's go back to watt hours. So we're going to log the watt hours. We'll check after this thing completely shuts us down. We'll find out of a rated 768 watt hours, how many watt hours do we actually get coming through that AC inverter. We'll check back when it's done. All right, our usable capacity test through the AC inverter is done. Let me plug this into grid power and see what we got. All right, we got a total of 650 watt hours out of a rated 768. So that would be a 84, yeah, about I think 84.6% of rated capacity. So that puts us slightly on the high side of average, but very solid numbers coming out of that AC inverter for usable capacity. All right, let's do some AC inverter load testing on the C800. I'm currently pulling about 732 watts, and you can see it's very quiet right now. If I stop talking, look at the decibel meter. We're at 48 decibels. All right, so let's see what it takes to overload this. Now, according to the documentation, it has a 1200 watt continuous rating. So let's see what happens when we push it past that. I'm actually going to push this to about 1400 watts, and we'll see how loud the inverter gets, and we'll also see how long it allows us to run. So let me fire up the extra load, and I'll hit the countdown timer, and we'll just kind of see how long it takes before it shuts us off. We are at 1400 watts. And it appears to have throttled us down to 1191. So I'm going to leave the timer running. See if we can get a full 10 minutes out of this. All right, 10 minutes, no problem. But it did clearly throttle us down from about 1400 watts to 1193. And it did that by throttling the voltage down. And a lot of units have this functionality. Preferably, there should be a way to disable it. And just to show you what I'm talking about, if I plug a little watt meter in here, we take a look at that, and I go look at the voltage, you can see we're at 111 volts. And that's fine, especially for resistive loads like heaters and lights. But I think if you were running an AC refrigerator on this, or a television or a computer, you really generally don't want it to do voltage throttling because you could damage those sensitive electronics. Perfectly fine for heaters and lights, not so good for complex electronics. And what you'll see here, if I start removing load, you'll see the voltage climb back up. You see it immediately jump back up to 120 volts. All right, let's do a solar test on this C800. Now it does have an input voltage on the side here. I'll put a picture up so you can see it. But anywhere from 11 to a maximum of 60 volts DC at a maximum current of 10 amps. So it'll cap you at 10 amps, but you should never input more than 60 volts. So before I connect that solar panel, anytime you're connecting a solar panel or solar panel configuration to a power station or charge controller, you should always check the output voltage to make sure you're not exceeding that, even if you think you've got it set up correctly. So I'm going to see, I should be getting, basically what I've done is I've over paneled. I've got 400 watts out there, so two 200 watt panels in series that output a voltage open circuit of about 20 volts each. So I have a 60 volt max on this. I'm going to go ahead and test my my leads up here just to see what I've got. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm getting 40.7 volts, so well within the range. So I am okay to make that solar panel connection. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it's a an XT60 connector. Go ahead and turn that on from my disconnect, and I just start getting solar. Now I'm at 98% state of charge, so I've got a little space heater here pulling a continuous 200 watts. And so basically it's passing through most of that power to the little space heater. But overnight, this is going to catch up and run this all the way down. And we're going to find out if this actually resumes solar charging in the morning on its own, or if I have to do something to wake it up. So hopefully it lets it solar charge on its own without me having to do anything, because that would be a lot more convenient. But in the meantime, while we're waiting on that, let me go ahead and show you something cool that I discovered. This little magnetic ball with a little 1/4 mount screws into the top, but it also telescopes. So you can just pull this up. I would say it goes to about maybe 4 feet high total. But what that does is you can set this on a picnic table or even on the ground. It allows you to get the light up in the air so that when you turn the light on, it allows you to sort of get you a nice soft area light for your dining area or whatever, if you're trying to eat dinner and it's, you know, already dark outside, which is often the case when you're out camping, or if you just need to provide some light in your room if you're using this for a small emergency backup power solution. Just really good design. I really have to give the guys at Anker kudos on this, because this is it's just a neat design. All right, let's check back in the morning. It's going to be about, I don't know, 18 hours or so. We'll come back and we'll find out if we're solar charging in the morning, and this thing will most certainly be dead overnight because I'm going to leave that little heater running, and we'll see how it behaves. All right, it is just about noon. We have some pretty good sun this morning so far. Let's just see how we are doing. We're currently pulling in 293 watts and we're at 85%. And that is after this thing ran itself completely down overnight and the AC inverter and the entire unit went into standby mode. So the AC inverter actually got shut down by the BMS, and you'll notice the AC inverter did not come back on, and that is typical of portable power stations. So anything with portable in the name is not probably going to give you the functionality where it will automatically turn on the AC inverter again once power is restored. So that's something you would have to manually do in order to resume powering whatever load you have attached to the AC inverter. So just be aware of that. Wow, I wonder if anybody has ever said the words AC inverter more times than that in a 10-second span. But anyway, this thing is very close to maxing out that 300 watts based on my little 400 watt input. So 300 watts is where it's actually capped. So this thing definitely passes the solar charging test and enables itself to fully resume solar charging in the morning, even though it was in a shutdown state, without you having to touch any buttons or unplug and replug anything. So good stuff on solar charging for this C800. All right, let's see how noisy the AC output is from this C800. I've got my cratchety old guitar amp here. Doesn't even have a grounding plug, as you can see. I'm going to hook it to, connect it to grid power, and I'm going to put my mic in front of this, boost it a little bit so you can hear the hum from grid power, and we're going to use that as our baseline. All right, so just a slight hum. Now let's plug this into the AC inverter on the C800. Turn on the AC inverter, and we'll do the same test. All right, so clearly a bit of noise in that AC output on the C800. So I would not recommend the C800 for the specific application if you need to do remote power with a guitar amp or a PA system, because it will create apparently a lot of buzz unless your amp has built-in noise suppression. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's do a UPS mode test on this SOLIX C800 Plus. Now on screen there is no indication that we're in UPS mode, but I have confirmed with Anker that it does support UPS mode. It just doesn't say it on the screen. We can show we're currently outputting 17 watts to the laptop, and I'm powering the laptop through the AC inverter. Laptop battery is removed, so any disruption in power at all will cause the laptop to shut down, and we are supplying grid power. So presumably we are passing through grid power at this point to power the laptop. So let's find out if the laptop gets disrupted at all and shuts down when I simulate a power outage by polling grid power. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Right? No disruptions in the laptop at all. So it survived the switch over to battery power. And just to show you that it is being powered from the AC inverter, I'll try to unplug and replug this as quickly as I can, and you'll see what happens. Okay. That was very clumsy, but as you can see, the laptop went out immediately because it has no internal battery. All right, so UPS mode on the C800 confirmed. Okay, a couple more things. First of all, I did check the no load draw on the AC inverter, and it seems to consume about 1.5% of the overall capacity per hour that you leave it on with no load. So if you leave the AC inverter on, it'll just chew up 1.5% of your overall capacity for each hour. And you can adjust the behavior in the app, and we'll take a look at that in just a quick second. But the other thing that I did is I also did my 24-hour fridge test on this using a DC fridge. And regardless of what setting I had it on, whether I had the auto timeouts turned off or I had it even set to just the default timeouts of like, I think 4 hours, it continued to power that DC fridge because the load was sufficient to keep it from shutting down for a full 24 hours before I ended the test. So I think this is a really suitable product for a DC fridge, regardless of what kind of timeout settings you have turned on in the app. Okay, so let's dive into the app and take a look at what you get there. So I've got the Anker mobile app up right now, and you can see I've got a couple of devices here. One is currently online, that's the C800. So I'm gonna go ahead and click that tile. And here you can see I have no input going on, either DC or AC. So no solar, no AC charging, and outputs, I've got nothing going on there either. You can turn on the DC, the car port there, and you can also see there's a timer. So I can open up a timer and say, I only want that to run for an hour or 2 hours. or you can customize it to a specific time, which is kind of cool. And then it will turn that port off automatically. And then you can do the same thing with the AC port. It's got its own little timer that you can turn on, and you can see there it just turned on the AC port, or the AC inverter. You can adjust the brightness of the display. You can turn the display on or off remotely if you want to conserve power, although the display doesn't really use much power. And then the other thing that you can do is you can go into the little bolt icon up there on the upper right hand corner, and you can set some other things. So this is, I really like, you can set the AC charge power. So you can go all the way down to 200 watts, so slow charging. That puts much less stress on the cells. If you're not in a hurry, you might as well charge it slowly, or you can charge it at max of 750 watts. So that's pretty cool. I'm just gonna leave it at 400 watts and save that. And then if I plug it into the AC charger, the max it's gonna draw is 400 watts. You can set the overall unit timeout here, just as you would expect. Pretty straightforward, or you can say, I never want it to time out. So your choice. You can turn on the lighting modes. Again, set screen brightness, screen timeouts. I leave mine at 30 minutes just because I'm filming a lot and I don't like it to shut off on me. You can give it a different name. You can connect via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So you always have to connect via Bluetooth, but you can set up the Wi-Fi so that it'll use Wi-Fi instead if you want to, but you don't really have to do that. Set your temperature units, and you can upgrade the firmware. And it does include a digital copy of the user manual, which is nice. I actually like that because it does give you the opportunity to go review some of the specs. If you ever forget like what some of the limits are or what some of the functionality is, you can pull that right up in the app without having to go dig the manual out. Now, one thing that's missing from this app, that at least at this point in time, is the ability to turn off that voltage throttling feature. I would have liked to have seen that in the app, but it does not appear to be here. All right, so that's kind of the basics of the app. All right, so I am very impressed with this little power station. Clearly, Anker continues to be a leader in both build quality and product design, and the idea to include a couple of rechargeable multi-mode LED flashlights with a telescopic stand so they can be used to light up your cooking space or your picnic table at night, or maybe just kind of super handy in a power outage. Just a pretty genius little idea. So what's missing? Well, it doesn't have wireless phone charging, and for me at least, that's not really a big deal. Certainly not something I'd consider a deal breaker. And then another thing that comes to mind is that I would have liked to have seen an option in the mobile app to disable that voltage throttling feature. But again, this is not necessarily a deal breaker as long as you do understand that, you know, if you wanted to power something like a fridge freezer or maybe a desktop PC, maybe a TV, you just kind of need to make sure that you're not trying to push the total power output past 1200 watts, or it will drop the voltage on you, and that's generally not a good thing for those kinds of electronics. Now, the introductory pricing on the C800 Plus should be right around $500 after the available $150 coupon, and I think for a short period of time they're also going to throw in a free Anker USB charger. And when you do the math in terms of cost per watt hour, the C800 Plus is not going to be the cheapest thing on the market in terms of cost per watt hour. That said, I don't really find that this price point is at all unreasonable for what you're getting. And in fact, I'd probably go so far as to say that with the top shelf build quality and the extensive feature set that includes a polished mobile app for remote control and a pair of rechargeable LED lights and that 5-year warranty, let's not forget about that, this is kind of clearly a case of you get what you pay for. I think the bottom line for me is that if you happen to be in the market for an affordable but high quality power station in that sub 1000 watt hour capacity class, the C800 should definitely be on your short list. And I suspect that if you were to buy one of these C800 Plus units, it would definitely exceed your expectations. And that's not something I say very often about products that I review. And per usual, I will put a link to the Anker SOLIX C800 Plus in the video description below if you want to go check it out. And yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this video. I do hope you found at least something helpful. If you did, please consider clicking on that like button for me. I'd very much appreciate that. And if you're not already a subscriber, maybe consider subscribing to the channel as well. I do offer my sincere thanks for stopping by and watching this video with me, and I do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.